All right. Hey there, folks. Even with conventions, readings, and other author type events back in action, I figured I'd keep bringing book tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster, Season 10 Intriguing Interviews with Creative Minds. So, time travel has always been one of those fascinating concepts we can't seem to totally reconcile, yet we love to play around with. And then, of course, way back in 1989, when we leapt into the quantum accelerator and off we went on adventure after adventure. But it left us with a lack of closure. That's why tonight we'll be jumping back and forth in time as we dig into Quantum Leap 2.0. On our panel tonight is my friend, aerialist extraordinaire, exhausted kickboxer, and one of my fellow Crazy Hate Press inmates, Mary Fan. Mary is the author of multiple novels and short stories, focused primarily on intrepid heroines, and also writes reviews and essays about Star Wars, Star Trek, and of course, Quantum Leap. Welcome back, Mary.
Thank you.
All right. Also on our panel is my pal, Brad JURN. Brad is a sci-fi and fantasy fan and has contributed short stories to the Brave New Girls anthology, co-edited by Mary. Welcome, Brad. You got to put on your sound, buddy. Unmute yourself. There you go. Oh, we lost your audio. You'll have to reconfigure that. And rounding out our panel is my pal, Jason Hunt, an avid sci-fi fan. Jason is the founder and editor-in-chief of sci-fi4me.com and Sci-Fi for Me TV, where he interviews authors, creators, and fans about all things science fiction and fantasy. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions for the panel in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, Brad, I'm just doing a quick check. How's your audio? We lost you. You might have to log out and log back in. Don't worry, we're here. All right. So, at the risk of dating myself, and I know Mary's sitting there rolling her eyes, I'm not even sure if any of the panelists were alive when the original Quantum Leap debuted, other than me. But at the very least, you're all fans of the show. Before we dig into the reboot, give me some impressions of the original, what it's meant to you, and if you've had a chance to go back and rewatch some of those original episodes, how you think they hold up today. Now, I know Mary's got some things to say about this, so we're going to start with her.
All right. So, well, I was technically alive in 1989. I was about one. So I mostly watched the show on reruns on sci-fi TV back in like the 2000s, when they used to always have reruns of older shows on in the afternoons. I'd watch them after school. And my memories of it were always very warm and fuzzy. I was like, oh, you have this guy, he would go back in time, try to save someone, and you would always have a happy ending, and then he'd leap to his next one. And I had very warm and fuzzy memories of it. So I was very excited when they had the new show come out. And then, of course, I wanted to go back and rewatch some old episodes. And I thought it would be a comfort watch. It ended up being a little more enraging than I expected, mostly because that early 90s sexism is so blatant from a 2023 perspective. Like, just some things that were considered humorous back then are incredibly creepy today, such as Al spying on a room full of teenage cheerleaders and being like, haha, look, I'm with cheerleaders. I'm like, Al is a grown man spying on underage girls. Yeah, that doesn't fly today. Nope. It was funny in 1990 or whatever, but it's not funny today. And then, of course, there's the whole Sam as the great man sort of perspective of the whole show, where Sam can do everything and anything. And yeah, it's not as fun having one perfect hero. Now, like, we want our heroes to be a little more complex. And that's a little more forgivable, I think, except for when he starts explaining things to every female in existence. But yeah, so watching it from a 2020 perspective, it wasn't quite as comfort watchable as I was hoping. But that said, I still love the spirit of the show and what it was trying to do, even though it is a bit dated now.
So when you did go back and watch, did you watch really the entire run, or did you just sort of like just kind of pop in and out? I'm just curious.
I was intending to watch the entire run, but I couldn't stomach any more sexism after about 2 seasons.
It's funny. I did go back and watch a couple of them just to sort of refresh my memory. And the sexism is it was a little hard to sort of, it was a little shocking to see how pervasive it was, because it was just sort of because it's not that it was one thing that it was there, but it's almost done so casually, like there's nothing even to consider.
Yeah, like it was just considered humor back then. Like it wasn't. I feel like it wasn't malicious. It was just that was what was considered funny in 1991. So that's why it's like, yeah, I can't hate you because of it, but it's also a little hard to stomach.
Yeah, it wasn't mean. It was just sort of,
creepy and condescending.
I mean, yes, all right, fine. I want shows that are not creepy and not condescending. Look at me, I'm so high and mighty. No,
I don't think it was as bad as the old Star Trek. That has really dated as far as the sexism and the female lackeys fetching coffee, and I think that's aged a lot worse. I don't think it's as bad as that. I'm talking about the '80s Quantum Leap, but definitely I get what Mary's saying.
I do love, but I will say that I don't know what you guys felt about it, but one element that, and we'll talk about it as we go forward, that's not in the reboot is that, yes, the trope is maybe a bit overplayed now, but the voiceover from Sam, it gives a sense of intimacy and inner monologue that I thought was kind of makes it a little bit more, the show a little more intimate. And the fact that it was just the two of them for the most part, it was a kind of a real, like the two of them were just in it together so often and we spent so much time over 5 seasons that you had a chance to sort of really be in it, with those two guys, because there was really kind of almost nobody else outside them. But I do like the adventurous spirit, and, having watched it for me during the original run, it was really kind of exciting. And, at the time there wasn't a lot of that kind of genre fiction, not nearly as much as there was today. Jason, any thoughts if you had a chance to go back and check out the original run?
Haven't seen too many of them recently. My wife and I started on a rewatch here not too long ago because she had not seen it before, so she's getting into it brand new. And one of the things that I remember out of that, like you're talking about that dynamic between Sam and Al, there was always this contrast between Al's recklessness and his wolf whistles and, his attitude, and Sam basically trying to keep everything grounded and, all right, we've got, what am I supposed to do here? And bring, Al was kind of the shiny squirrel character, and Sam was a little bit more, we have a job to do, let's get it done so I can get home. And I thought the contrast and the dynamic between those two worked really well in terms of setting up this relationship where you can identify more with Sam and what he's going through. And yeah, the monologue does help with that as well. But Al was so over the top in some cases to, for Sam to kind of pull him back in. I think part of that is what made that dynamic work between those two. And you could tell that they were friends, because they're like, all right, come on, focus. He's the best friend who keeps the other guy out of trouble.
I mean, certainly there was, Al was the more outrageous character. He was the more flamboyant one, but I think in that sense it played because, Sam was essentially, he was kind of like the aw shucks kind of guy. Oh, Al, you're always embarrassing me. Why do you have to be that way? And Al was just like, hey, you gotta live while you can. But also he was also a tortured soul because he had been through quite a bit.
Yeah, Al was the comic relief. Sam's the straight guy. Sam's Abbott and Al's Costello.
But there was a lot more to Al, though. I mean, this was a serious guy. I mean, he was a prisoner. He was a prisoner of war. He was an Air Force pilot. I mean, he was a smart guy. All right, but anyway, so in the original run, we were obviously left with a rather sad cliffhanger, and one that for me has been plaguing my nerd heart ever since. We picked up 30 years later, and Dr. Sam Beckett is still missing. So we've got a new time traveler and faithful holographic companion. So talk to me about Raymond Lee as Ben Song and Caitlin Bassett as Addison Augustine. You like them? You love them? Do you hate them? You feel indifferent? What's your take, Brad? What do you think?
It works. The more it goes for me. It's kind of fun because you see them fall in love at the beginning. They're in love, and they're separated by his memory loss. and then you slowly see them kind of fall back into love. And I think Ben more with the amnesia. I think I would like him more that way than without it. I'm glad they did that, because I thought of when I started watching it and he had this memory loss, it reminded me of the Harrison Ford movie regarding Henry, where when he gets the amnesia, he's a much likable person. I think I like Ben more with the amnesia than without it, and maybe not as colorful as Sam Beckett, and a little more acts, maybe a little more like a quantum physicist, and a little more of a straight guy and less comedic and less, flirting with the girls. So yeah, I like the dynamic between both of them. I think they both played off each other very well. It's different. What do I like better? I don't know. It's apples and oranges really between Sam and Al and Caitlin and Ben and his girl. It was just like, I don't want to compare them because they're both different, and I didn't mind it. It was just, this show is more or less a reboot, more of a continuation. So it's just, I'm glad they're not trying to reinvent the same formula beat for beat. So that's what I got on those two.
So Mary, what did you think about our new time traveling couple here?
Yeah, I would agree that it's kind of a slow burn between them. I liked Ben pretty much right off the bat because he was our sort of new all shucks everyman type who's also a super genius. Addison came off as kind of cold and reserved at first, but that's part of her character. And as the season progressed, I don't know, I really warmed up to her. Like, I was actually really impressed with how they did that. How at first I was like, all right, just another, strong female beauty. But then over time, it's like, oh no, she's actually pretty complex. And I like their dynamic as well. I like that, they tried to keep it professional at the beginning, or at least Addison did, knowing that this is her fiance, but also they have a mission. And I like that she was able to stay on point. And yeah, I would also agree that I'm glad they didn't try to reinvent the Sam and Al relationship. Like, this is not Sam and Al, this is Ben and Addison. It's completely different. And so you really can't compare them.
So it's interesting. I didn't realize this. I read up about it later. So the actress, Caitlin Bassett, who plays Addison, so her real life is basically clearly modeled Addison after her real life. She was in the military for many years. She was served in Afghanistan. She was an intelligence officer. So they really kind of took her real life experience and folded it into her on-screen character. So Jason, let me ask you, as we're continuing on this, one of the things that we just didn't talk about yet is the fact that Ben was not supposed to be the time traveler. It was supposed to be the other way around. So did you like the fact that, we learned that it was, that it was supposed to be the reverse? Addison was supposed to be hopping through time, and Ben was going to be, her hologram. What did you think about that dynamic, Jason?
I think that adds some tension between the characters in the beginning that you need to have to kind of layer in on top of Ben's amnesia, because he doesn't know what to know. He doesn't know what he knows. And when Addison comes in, and she's now got to fight not only her worry about Ben because he went off on this wild hair and we don't know why he did it, but now she's also got to fight her own resentment against, well, it was supposed to be me. And she's got to be the one to kind of bring him back, and that role reversal, you can kind of feel that in the dynamic between the two of them from the beginning. But for the most part, I like the two characters. I generally don't like the scenes that they have where we get these massive info dumps in the middle of the show.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in just a minute. So you're onto something we're gonna go with. So let me kind of frame this up, and we'll keep going there. So unlike the original series, which was almost entirely Sam and Al, with nearly the whole episode kind of being the adventure of the week, in 2.0, they split the time between the adventure of the week and the conspiracy and the players at Quantum Leap headquarters. So as a result, the adventure of the week is only, instead of being 40 or 42 minutes, really their adventure is maybe 20 minutes. It's half the time. So they've got to pack a lot of story into a very short, and they have to compress it. Now, you think it works? It doesn't work on the structure? Jason, stick with it.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with seeing more in the Quantum Leap project than we got in 1.0. There are some interesting characters. There are some interesting dynamics between Magic and Jen and Ian.
Well, that we're going to get into next. Let's just
But
focus right now
as far
on the
as
structure.
the structure goes, I think for the most part there's a pretty good balance between the mission and the HQ stuff. I never saw anything that really kind of stuck out as too much of one thing versus another. I think they've done pretty well, you know, kind of mixing between the two and giving us enough of each in every episode.
Brad, what about you?
I feel that the time travel stuff, his little missions, they feel rushed to me. They feel rushed. I think it does suffer because of the split. They feel they're too easily resolved and a little bit rushed. But I really love the ensemble and the conspiracy stuff, so that kind of makes up for it.
Mary, what about you? Anything same, different, other?
I think a little bit of both. So I think it varies episode to episode. I feel like it really struggled more toward the beginning as they were leading up to the mid-season finale. Like that was where they were really shortchanging the adventures, like Ben's adventures in the past in exchange for the conspiracy. I think the most blatant one, in my opinion, was the one where Jewel State was guest starring, because that woman was acting her heart out, and yet I could not bring myself to care about her storyline because it seemed like the writers didn't care. Like, you know, here's a very simplistic storyline, and they were really focusing on the conspiracy. So that one I remember I gave a pretty poor review to, because I was like, poor Jewel State, like she's doing her darndest, but she can't save this storyline alone.
Was that the one?
That was the earthquake episode.
The earthquake. God.
Yeah, where Ben has to save Jewel State's son from a collapsing building, and that's it. That's the whole story. There's no twists, no backstory, like just nothing. Just that's it.
Yeah. I also,
so yeah, that was one of the more egregious examples of one that did not work for me. That said, there were some where I thought the mix worked very well. One was Let Them Play, the one with the trans girl who wanted to play on her basketball team, and how that impacted Ian personally, because they too are trans. That one I thought was, and like, you know, you got Ian into the imaging chamber to see the girl play at the end, and it was like very heartwarming. So yeah, it was uneven. I thought toward the end they figured out their formula a little better. Like it kind of struggled toward the beginning, but it kind of felt like they did some reflecting over that hiatus and got it right in the second half.
Okay, fair enough. I also found that a lot of the, particularly in the front half, the adventures of the week kind of, they didn't totally come together for me. One thing that I did found that frustrated me is that, of course, we're watching a show. We know none of this is real, and we know but it visually, it felt very fake through a lot of the episodes. Like they really felt like we're filming on a cheap set in Hollywood. It didn't like, it's like, oh, didn't I just see that same set in some other show? It felt very, and it was breaking that fourth wall for me. Especially on the front half. And I think the balance was a little uneven for me, but we're going to dive into this a little bit more. So we touched on it a little bit. So let's talk about that supporting cast. And what I thought was a pretty cool twist to the entire show was bringing in Ernie Hudson as Magic from one of the best episodes from the original run, which gives some real connective tissue to the first series and some elder statesman leadership to the team. So, Mary, just about, what did you think about the character of Magic? You like him? Don't like him? What do you think?
I liked him a lot. Like I thought he was very effective as a character. How you got just enough of him as well. Like he came in, you know, he didn't have that much screen time. Like he had maybe 30 seconds of screen time per episode, just because of the way the show is set up. And yet you remember all of those moments.
That's true. Actually, he has, you know, probably by percentage, he has maybe the least amount of screen time, or just about the least, and yet he feels very present throughout so whether it's the way they write it, his performance, or both, for me it's working. What about you, Jason? What do you think? What's your take on Magic?
I like the character. I think we're seeing a lot more of Ernie Hudson than we are of Admiral Williams. He doesn't strike me as being as ex-military as I would expect, and I don't know where that expectation comes from, but there's a little bit too much comfort that he has with his team. There's not as much chain of command as much as what I was expecting.
Right, but if we
But
remember,
overall, the character works really well. I like seeing Ernie Hudson in anything. I mean, he's a great performer.
so for those who remember or don't remember from the original run, is that Sam Beckett saved Magic's life in Vietnam. And that's kind of his connective tissue all the way up to the present. So for me, the fact that he is a little bit less, staunch military conservative makes more sense to me because, yes, it's a military operation, but this is also a scientific exploration, and he knows firsthand what quantum leap can actually mean to a human being. He was actually impacted by it. So I think he has a certain sensitivity to what's going on that just say, if they brought in some colonel to come in and really treated it strictly as a military situation, I can understand it. Whether or not they would work better the other way, I guess we're not going to know, but at least I understand it. Jason, Brad, anything else to add on Magic, or did we hit it?
You hit it pretty good, but I just want to say it was a really big moment for me when he revealed that, because I vividly remember watching the old Vietnam episode at my grandparents when I was a kid, and I love that episode. It's my favorite. And I think with an ensemble or a show like this, you got to have one character that's the glue, that kind of glues everyone together and brings them together, and is kind of like the backbone. And so I think he works. Jason has a good point, but he is older, and I'd like to say a lot of military people I know that are older are started to mellow a little bit, and they act less military. So I'm loving them.
All right. So I'm not sure what you guys think, but Mary, I'm going to follow up on what you said, but I find that Ian Wright, played by Mason Alexander Park, has that indefinable sort of, it quality, a presence that just kind of draws you in. So Mary, stick with what you were going before. Talk to me about the character of Ian and what you think they bring to the series.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ian, like you said, and Mason Alexander Park, the actor, has this sort of charisma that even in the very beginning, when they're just kind of, you're a nerd behind the computer, they just kind of, you can't take your eyes off of them. You're like, okay, what's this character about? And I really liked how they revealed more about the character over the course of the season, both, their inner demons, their background. And of course, I love the role they played in the finale. I'm assuming everybody has watched the show at this point. So spoiler alert, like Ian is kind of behind it all.
Hey, Mary, do me a favor, just shift about 6 inches to your left, because that lamp behind you keeps poking. That's better. Good. Good.
Yeah, I thought they were a great character. I thought, Mason Alexander Park did a great job of portraying the character. And also, hooray for having a trans main character where their transness is not the focus of the story. Like, this is not another, tragic issue story or whatever. It's like, no, like for the most part, they're just a member of Quantum Leap, and only when it's actually relevant to the plot, such as in the story where, the whole point was that it was a trans story.
Right.
Does it even become a thing?
I agree. And the fact that the fact that the character was trans was completely normalized by not talking about the fact that they're trans. They're an adult, they're a professional doing their job and part of the team, and their gender is irrelevant to the quality of what they bring to the table.
Yep. And in general, that's true for the entire cast. Like, this is an entire cast where there are no cishet white men, but it's not a thing. It's just like the cast is the cast.
That's right. Brad?
Very Star Trekian in its diversity.
Yes, I mean, in fact, Team Quantum Leap, other than Magic, there are no men on the team.
I never thought of
right? I mean, and it didn't affect me one way or another. All the characters were who they were, and they kind of either you carry the day, right, or you don't. All right, so we also have a conspiracy built into the series where Janice Calavici, who is the daughter from Al from the original, is operating in the shadows, and mostly for reasons unknown. We kind of get we learn what happens towards the end. So what did you think about bringing her in and the role that she played? Did you think it was sort of, was it just sort of, do you think it worked, or did it, or was it a misfire? What do you think, Jason?
It's a toss up. There are points in the arc of the season where it makes sense for her to be where she's at, but I don't know if it's the performance or the writing, but a lot of times I found her character very annoying, and it felt more hand of the writer annoying. She's annoying and she's difficult because she needs to be, because the plot needs her to be, not necessarily the fact that that's how that character is. There's a lot of hand wavium in terms of her resentment for being left off the team, but it also opens up the door for the question of, well, you've got Al's daughter in this show. Where's Sam's daughter? Because they're establishing some of these connections to the original show. Where's Sammy Jo Fuller? Where's Sam's wife? And Al's daughter being there, I think is good to have that connection back to the original show. But I'm not completely taken with the character and what they're doing with her. If they integrate her into the team, then maybe there's some room for growth there. But right now, she feels kind of like a tacked on, has to be there character for plot rather than something that's organic to the story.
Mary, what about you?
I tend to agree. I wanted to like her, but she really did seem more like a plot device than a character. Like, her one personality trait seemed to be, resentful, snarky hacker, which we've seen a million versions of. And I kept thinking that they were going to open up with her at some point, but they never really did. And I also think the reveal at the end for why she was being so secretive was kind of anticlimactic. So yeah, she felt like a wasted opportunity. But that said, I think there's something there that could be developed. They just haven't gotten there yet.
And the question is whether or not they will, which is right now just an open question. Brad, what was your take? I have a couple of thoughts on it. Brad, what did you think?
I thought she was a little overly brass. They made her a little too, like Mary and Jason hit on, a little over the top with her resentment and not very likable. This is Al's daughter. She should be, I don't know. There's some lineage to the old show. Make her a little bit likable. And it got better, but yeah, I don't think it felt forced for me. It was just, man, she's pissed, and that's all I got. It works okay for me. I'm okay with her being there and not being there.
What I found was it disappointed me a little bit, is that even if you start her off with the idea that, okay, first there's a mysterious someone trying to break into our system. We've seen this kind of a million times before, and then we find out who it is. And if she's going to have this, specific reason for doing what she's doing, and she's mistrustful and all that, that's one thing. But if you're going to go that far on the front end, I think you got to carry it to the other side of it. And I felt like they didn't really do that. Like, they gave us a reason, but I needed more to accept who her character was for the arc of the whole season. I needed a little bit more depth, and there should have, in my mind, been a little bit more reverence for for the lineage of who her dad was and what it meant. And I felt that was a little bit of a missed opportunity there. All right, so we've touched on it a little bit, but as is true in any series, some episodes are going to connect with you more than others. Jason, let's start with you. What was one of your favorites?
I would say Judgment Day is probably the best one out of the season, just because of how much we got in terms of performance and just the way the thing held together. A number of these episodes have had little logic bombs in the middle. It's like, wait a minute, hold on, that doesn't work. But I like that this one kind of ties in all of the different threads from
You're talking about the finale.
Yeah, and it ties in a number
don't go too deep into that, because we're going to talk about that.
But that's the one that I think is probably the best one out of the season. And you're right, they did in somewhere in the middle, they did kind of get a little bit better about making sure that all of the meat was there on the bones, as it were, as opposed to the first half of the season. So it does feel like somebody sat there and went, hold on, let's take stock a little bit. And by the time they get there on that last episode, They finally got their legs under it. But with a first season, second season on a lot of these science fiction shows, there always is going to be a struggle because not only are they doing drama, regular character work, but they have to put it inside this framework of science fiction. And those of us who remember Star Trek: The Next Generation first couple of seasons were awful for the most part. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of leeway, but by the time they get to the finale, it feels like they've got everything pretty much together.
All right. Well, so Brad, what about you? What was one of your highlight moments for the season?
I had a big highlight moment, and I thought it was a really good piece of television. It was Stand By Ben, where he's helping the teens running away from that evil camp where they were basically been institutionalized for whatever quirks or trauma that they're suffering from or has been put on them. And that was very, very intense. The one before that was the Exorcist episode, and I found that the one with the kids way more scary. That really hit me hard, and I really loved that episode. It was also, out of all the episodes, I felt like it was furthest removed from the whole conspiracy arc, and it didn't really, I don't think it moved that forward hardly at all. It focused on the story and on what was going on with Ben and those kids, and I love that one.
Yeah, I thought that was it gave us a chance to sort of let the one-off characters, we got more time with them, and we really got to see kind of what they were up against. What about you, Mary? Or about Dorian? What's Dorian's favorite?
So I agree. Stand By Ben was a very strong episode, and for me, that actually felt like a turning point in the show itself, because up until then, it kind of felt like the episodes were getting more and more conspiracy heavy. And I remember even writing this in my reviews, being like, is it time for me to acknowledge that this show might not be that good? And then Stand By Ben happens, and I'm like, okay, they figured it out. This works. I will say my favorite, I am definitely biased because I am a sucker for a good sports story, is Let Them Play, which is the one I was talking about earlier with the trans girl who just wants to play on her basketball team.
Okay. I had mine, which I also thought was a good one, and also for some personal reasons. The two that I thought for me that were pretty tight and were exciting was the one where they were in the lab and the explosion was going to happen. It was the Groundhog Day episode where they kept going back. I just kind of fundamentally like those kind of episodes. I know it's been done to death on various shows, but I really kind of like the way they handled it, because you get a little bit more of a Rashomon type of thing. And the other one that I liked was the one when they were on the aircraft carrier, where Brandon Roush was playing Addison's dad. I thought that was kind of a good one. I like the fact that it was sort of a mostly a closed setting episode, so everything was kind of self-contained. And I like the fact that we got to learn a little bit more about Addison's backstory. And I thought those were kind of tight. And I felt like a little bit more in the second half that the episodes themselves got a little tighter and more focused than in the second half, which is totally fair, because you sort of, trying to get your sea legs, no pun intended.
It must make you wonder if they've been reading our reviews.
Yeah, ours, or yours?
I mean, one of the producers did retweet one of them, so.
Nice. All right, good for you. All right, quick interlude for folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for the panel, send in the chat box and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so one of the more mysterious elements from the original series was the evil leaper. In the reboot, we kind of get our own version of that, yet with another twist. How did you like how they handled this mysterious, other leaper, Leaper X that they were calling him for a while, right? Leaper X, that's what they said. All right, Brad, what'd you think?
I liked it. I would have liked maybe a little bit more of it, and I think it adds it. There were evil leapers in the old show too, and yeah, I thought it was cool. And you have it's revealed later in the season, there's another person leaping around, so the more leapers, the more interesting it makes the show. I think it worked, and I think it built up good for the final episode where they left off, and set that up really good. So yeah, I liked it.
Mary, what about you?
I like the idea of it, and I am glad that it was resolved within season one and that they didn't try to drag it out over like 5 seasons or something. But that said, I thought Martinez, or Leaper X, was kind of underused. Like, we really only see him we see a flash of him twice, and then he has that one episode with the asylum where he actually plays a role, and then that's it before the big final battle. So as a final villain, it wasn't that compelling because we didn't really know who he was. We didn't really feel this imminent threat. And I'm kind of like, for the season finale to really land, you want to really dislike the villain and be rooting for the good guys to take him down. And it was kind of more of just a plot device more than a character. So I was like, you know what? It worked for what it was, but it could have worked better. Like I wanted to hate him more so that he, like when he went down, I was rooting for him as opposed to being like, all right, I guess that's over now.
I happen to agree. Conceptually, I liked it, but he was just kind of more, he was just sort of more structural than a real character. We didn't really know anything about him. You know, you kind of want to like love to hate your bad guys or really understand why they're coming from. And, you know, I get that he was sort of out to do whatever he was supposed to do. And then we learned what he was doing and you go, oh, okay. And then, you know, they had the final battle. There was a real another missed opportunity. And I would have liked to have seen maybe one of the episodes, maybe focused a little bit more on that character, even if they didn't give us everything. I thought that would have been maybe a different way to handle it, but such is life. Jason, what about you? Anything to add about our mysterious Leaper X?
Yeah, I agree. There were several missed opportunities with Martinez. One, there was no mention of the evil Leapers when they're talking about, well, we've got a new Leaper and he's a bad guy, he's a villain. This kind of thing has happened before. Let's take a look and see if maybe this is the same kind of thing. And I didn't get a sense, and we knew that he was presenting a threat to Addison, which is why Ben leaped, but I never got a sense of stakes. You know, I never got any real sense that he was that much of a threat, mainly because we didn't see him that much, but also he wasn't given enough to do. And by the time we get to the end, you're right, he's very much a functional character, but also consider that in the end, Ben failed in his mission because Ben's not the one really who stopped Martinez. It was some incidental random character in the environment of another leap. So if Martinez had not been shot by the bartender, Ben would be dead. So yeah, he's not, you don't get that much development, but then at the same time, you don't get any payoff at the end because the hero doesn't step up and save the day.
So we're going to move into that. So diving into the conspiracy and twists, and one I admit I didn't see coming, whether I should or I shouldn't have, I didn't. The big bad for season 1 turned out to be Ziggy, the supercomputer running Quantum Leap. So what do we think about that twist? And as season 1 concluded, what do we think about the finale? Brad, tell me what you got.
When it was revealed that Ziggy was the mole, it didn't really, I was like, okay, cool. It was kind of like, it didn't do much for me. I didn't like it. I want something else to be the bad guy. I want the government or whatever. It didn't work for me. And then I didn't really follow through. By the time we get to the last scene of the last episode, I forgot all about Ziggy. It's almost like they didn't extrapolate or elaborate much about it after it was revealed. They had their own little devices. They could still talk to the Leapers. And it was like, okay, Ziggy's off and that's it. So it didn't really hold up for me. Sorry.
Mary, what do you think?
I agree. It was a bit of a nothing burger reveal. And then I was like, okay, maybe they're going to go Skynet with this. But no, they didn't even do that. Like, it's like Ziggy wasn't sentient. Ziggy didn't have any motivation. It was just, oh no, it's just that they're using the same probabilities. I was like, oh, okay. That's a twist, I guess.
I have to admit, I happen to think maybe it's because, you know, I've seen the original run a couple of times and I was so invested. Just the fact that it was Ziggy and not, you know, somewhat one of the players behind the scenes, because they were sort of trying to, you know, they threw a few red herrings to make us think that, oh, maybe it was Jen, maybe it was Janice, maybe, you know, could have been any of the team members behind the wall. I like the fact that I said, okay, interesting, but I didn't necessarily think they spent enough time explaining after that. It was too big of a concept. They kind of did it. They kind of liked the dun 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 moment, but that's all there wasn't enough leading up to it. And I didn't feel there was enough coming afterwards. So Jason, you've clearly got some thoughts on that finale. So why don't you finish your thought there?
Well, the reveal that Ziggy is the mole, one, they didn't earn it. And there's not enough investment in Ziggy as a character, because if you remember in the original series, Ziggy had a personality. Ziggy was not necessarily sentient, but Ziggy was interactive and Ziggy had more to do. And this one, Ziggy's just a bunch of algorithms and programs, and it's not the same Ziggy. So I don't care, like you're saying, Russ, the fact that this is Ziggy and Ziggy's the mole, we don't get any emotional investment in Ziggy being the one that's going to betray the team. And we don't get any kind of a sense of a motivation as to why it would be that way. None of our villains have any kind of obvious motivation, and nothing gets explained why they're doing what they're doing. Same with Martinez. We don't know why he's going after Addison. We don't know why Ziggy is the mole. For what? Yeah, I mean, I expect we'll explore that in season 2, but I don't feel like they earned that moment when they revealed that Ziggy was the bad guy.
Yeah, they may have been.
I'll be honest. I forgot there was a mole half the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think maybe they were relying on, and at least with the Ziggy twist, they may have been relying on the fact that if you did know the original series, maybe I don't know. I'm just speculating that maybe they were kind of relying on the fact that of the sense of who Ziggy was from the original series. Maybe not. I don't know. Or maybe they just got lazy or they got lost in it. I think that it was only an 18 episode season. I think it was a bit overstuffed. They were just trying to do too much in too short a time. And they needed, a few more episodes, or they just needed to decide that, we're going to have to dive into the guts of, what's going on here. So we had a chance to sort of, let us sort of get to the point where we go, either you want to be able to say, I knew it, or you want to be able to go, whoa, and care. And I don't necessarily know. It sounds like you guys were all sort of, I like the twist more than you guys did, but overall, all right. All right. So I've got a 2-part question here. I think one element we all wanted, well, I wanted, but sadly did not get, was the return of Sam Beckett. Just your instinct, before the series ends, however long it goes, do you think we'll ever get the return of Sam Beckett? And if it doesn't happen, how, if at all, do you think that will affect the way we will view the franchise in its entirety? Brad?
I think if he doesn't return, that's going to make some of your diehard of the old show obviously a little disenfranchised, and they won't like it. I don't think he's going to. Bakula has already stated he's not going to make an appearance. I think it would be great if he did. Have some closure. I think it would be very cool. I personally don't think it was going to happen. I was hoping Richard Dean Anderson was going to show up in the reboot of MacGyver, and he didn't want to do it either. So I am skeptical, but hopeful.
Jason?
Well, given how the finale cut off, it would be a fun twist for Sam to show up right there at the beginning of season 2 premiere. But I'm with Brad. I don't think he's going to come back. I think part of that with Bakula sitting there saying that he would, since Dean Stockwell is gone, there's really not that much reason to do it anymore. Donald Belisario's gone. I mean, the old team, Bakula is pretty much the only one left. So he doesn't have as much emotional investment in the show as much as I think he had with the relationships on the creative team. And he doesn't have much reason to come back unless they give him an absolutely stellar arc. He's not coming back. But it does raise a question I want to ask after that.
So, Mary, what about you?
I would like to see him come back just because it would provide closure to the original show, and particularly since the new show opened with a line saying he never returns, but that kind of feels like they're setting up something. That said, I feel like it's out of the hands of the show itself. It's really up to Bakula. I mean, I feel like they're probably making overtures and he's probably just not that interested. And I don't think it should affect the legacy of the new show, whether or not he shows up, since, they're doing their own thing now.
Okay. For me, if they don't bring him back, I'm burning the show to the ground.
You're entitled to your wrong opinion.
Okay, well, fair enough. But as a classic diehard, to me, it's an unforgivable sin if they don't find a way to bring him back. It can't stand. I'm sorry.
Let's go get Bakula's house.
Okay, well, hey, you know what? I'll guarantee you this: if they write him a check, he'll show up. All right, that's That's great, but now it's time for a special section on the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel of 7 possible categories, which I created especially for this panel. Wherever it lands is what you get, and the categories are: You Can Do Magic, Leap of Faith, Future Imperfect, Ziggy Stardust, Oh Boy, Time Traveler's Delight, and Kick 'em in the Junk. All right, Jason, you're up first. You ready?
Sure.
All right. All right, Leap of Faith. Okay, so if you could jump into the quantum accelerator, hopping back and forth through time, would you, even if you knew there was a chance you could get lost in your travels, never to return?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there is way too many possibilities for very bad things, and all of that in capital letters. I have given this a lot of thought over the years, because there are certain fixed points in time that I would go back and be tempted to change, but no, that would more than likely make things far worse.
All right, no flash points for you. All right, Mary, you're up next. All right, what do we got for you? And Mary's got Future Imperfect. All right, what do we got here? So if you could get a glimpse of your own future, but were unable to tell anyone about what you learned, good, bad, or indifferent, would you?
No, because I feel like that would impact what, I would do now, and it would feel it would make my life feel too rigid. Like, this is where it's going, whether you like it or not. And that's kind of depressing. So no, I don't want to know.
All right, fair enough. All right, a couple of scaredy cats over here. All right, Brad, you're up next. All right, what do we got for you? And you got, nope. There we go. Ziggy Stardust. No duplicates here. All right, so, okay, legendary musician David Bowie created the persona of Ziggy Stardust. If you could travel through time with any rock legend, and it can't be Ziggy Stardust, who would it be?
Ace Frehley from Kiss, favorite guitar player.
Okay, right on. All right, very cool. All right, that was awesome. But now it's time for where you're going to pick your poison. I've got 4 choices for you. I'm not going to tell you what's behind each. You've got A, B, C, or D. All right, we're going to go with Brad. You're up first. What do you got?
B.
What'd you say?
A, B, C, or D. What was the question again? Sorry.
Which one? Pick one. A, B, C, or D.
B, I said.
Oh, B. Okay. So B it's one of our newer questions. It's called convention retention. Much like life itself, conventions are finally back in full swing, but the way we interact with each other and fans has gone through a bit of a cultural change over the last several years, with a mixture of excitement, inclusion, and sadly, some cancel culture. Some cons seem to run smoothly, others not so much, with some cons tolerating some fairly bad behavior and others overreacting or too quick to react harshly when there's even a hint of dissatisfaction without actually taking the time to understand what happened and if the situation was blown out of proportion. If you
Is this a question or a treatise?
If you could make one suggestion to con runners and fandom about who attends about how we can have a more pleasant, respectful, and fun experience for all, what would it be?
Tell convention attendees to be patient and kind and courteous to each other when you're in line for photo ops.
All right, fair enough. All right, Mary, you're up next. So you got A, C, or D?
C.
Okay. All right, so you got, all right, cosplay or alter ego. Cosplay has been a part of fandom for as far back as we can remember, but this round of cosplay, the new stuff has been pretty amazing. Do you see cosplay as just another form of dress up, or is it an expression of some inner alter ego that has a place to shine?
It can be either. It depends on the cosplayer. For some people, like myself, we're casual cosplayers, like store-bought costumes, just want to run around dressed like Fennec Shan. Why not? For other people, they do really create a whole persona, and sometimes it's a unique persona. Like they'll, mash up Disney and Star Wars. They'll, take something that was a Renaissance, character, but bring them to the present. So there's a lot of space for creative expression, and there's also space for people who just want to wear the cool costume. And I think they're all valid.
All right, fair enough. All right, so Jason, you got C or D?
D, Delta.
All right, so we're going to give you some truth serum. Okay, I got 10 questions for you. You ready?
All right.
Favorite flavor ice cream?
Chocolate mocha.
What's one food you will never eat ever for any reason?
Chinese. I don't like it.
Okay, that was
Rude.
shocking. Okay. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, bucket list destination, anywhere in the world.
Home. Texas.
Scariest movie you ever saw?
I'll skip that one. I don't watch scary movies.
Okay. Do you play any musical instruments? If not, which one if you could?
I played the trumpet.
So did I back in the day, and not well. Cats or dogs?
Both.
Favorite cocktail, and if you don't drink, your go-to unwind beverage.
I don't drink, and usually my go-to drink is either sweet tea or Dr. Pepper.
All right. You could see a live performance, sports, music, theater, whatever, any seat, any venue, any time in history. What's your choice?
The Eagles in their prime.
Where?
No preference.
All right. If you could bring back one TV show you feel was canceled too soon to continue its run, what would it be?
Alphas.
Alphas. Okay. Yes, I remember it ended on a cliffhanger, and we didn't get season 3. All right. We're going to take some questions for the audience if we have any, and we don't at the moment. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to call it a day. All right. So bear with me just 1 minute. Hang on. Whoops. Sorry about that. All right, what do we got here? We got boom and boom. Okay, so what do we got? What am I looking at here?
You're looking at Brave New Girls. This is a young adult anthology series about heroic teenage girls who excel or have an interest in STEMs, and they use their smarts and their brains to save the day. And they're short stories that typically take place in a sci-fi, dystopian, or steampunk setting. I have the one that's featured right here is Tales of Girls Who Engineer and Explore, which will be released on July 5th. My story, The Refuge, will be featured in this book. And the other one is volume 6, Girls Who Engineer and oh my gosh, forgot the name. Girls Who
Chronicles of Misses and Machines.
Machines. Thank you, Mary. That has my debut story, The Microscope. I had it written down, but I didn't read it. And these books can be found on Amazon. If you want to learn more about Brave New Girls, this anthology series, actually, all the proceeds go to the Society of Women Engineers Scholarship Fund. So when you buy one of these books, you're helping put a girl through college. And it's you can learn more at bravenewgirls.weebly.com, and they're available on Amazon and Goodreads.
I hear the editor's a real pain in the ass, actually. Oh, there.
Only when it comes to commas.
Just kidding. All right. So we had so Mary, what? So
That's correct.
So we've got what? So so this is the new one, right?
Yep, that's the one that's coming out in July. And then Mrs. and Machines, the second one, the steampunk girl, that's the one that came out last summer.
Right. So so this is what volume
7.
7. Wow.
Yeah,
It's the biggest one yet.
Either.
Wow. So Mary, so I know you kind of post this from time to time. So you guys do a really wonderful thing by donating all this money. How many copies do you remember, just ballpark, about all in, how many copies have you guys sold over the 7 volumes?
I have no idea. I do know that we've raised at least $10,000 so far, which might not be a lot for some publishers, but considering it's just me and Tina and our laptops, I'm pretty happy about that.
No, it's fantastic. I can tell you, folks, if you haven't read them, check them out. I contributed to a couple of them. They're a lot of fun, and they're for a great cause. There's a lot of good writers, so I definitely encourage you to check them out. All right. So what is this clown? So what's the deal? What do we got here?
Well, that's me, I guess. Sci-Fi for me is an online news and commentary channel. We've been around since 2009, and we offer up news articles that hopefully don't tend to have very much bias in them. And then we have a lot of reviews that we post over at the .com. We've got a number of programs that are available on our video platforms. And I think we're probably right now we're producing 6 shows a week, 5 or 6 shows a week, depending on the schedule. We cover science fiction, fantasy, horror, video games, comic books, and a lot of interviews, a lot of talk. And we have our main news program on Saturday morning called Good Morning Multiverse that runs at 11 a.m. Eastern.
All right, very, very cool, very cool. All right, and as for me, since we've been talking about some time travel, if you like a little private eye mysteries with that time travel, I'll encourage you to check out my ongoing series featuring hard-boiled private detective Angela Hardwick. To my mind, she's part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, part Atomic Blonde. The first 3 books in the series are Crackle and Fire, Fractured Lives, and Hot Ash. They're all standalone mysteries that can be read in any order, but there is character development throughout, so your mileage may vary depending on whether you like to be in on the action from the beginning, or if you just like to jump in with whatever plot point leaps at you most. And I just got a big shout out from Sifwa, who put my Hardwick series side by side with Dirk Gently series from Douglas Adams. So I'll take it. The Hardwick novels are available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. And the 4th book in the series, which I will be announcing soon with a cover reveal, will be available in September. All right, folks, that was great. That's our show. I want to thank our guests tonight. We got Brad, JURN, Jason Hunt, and Mary Fan. And I want to thank everyone who's watching at home. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro. And as always, be generous, be gentle, be kind, and for God's sakes, go read a book. And I'll see you all next week. Take care now. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Thank
all
you.
right. See you guys. Have a great week, and check out all the good stuff. Take care.